go ahead and call the city council meeting to order. Please join me for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag
of
of the United States of America
and
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. I'll start with the review of tonight's agenda. I'll call for any proposed changes to tonight's agenda. We'll have public comment. I see that I have two issued for people here. Thank you for that. Was there any issued online earlier today, Jeff?
No, they're not here.
Okay, so at that moment, I'll let you guys know when it's time. We'll then go to a response to previous public comments. I don't believe we have it. Do we?
There was a couple of public comments, but we, not a response. We were in.
A response to the response, yeah. Then we'll go to our consent agenda that has our city council meeting minutes from February 18th as well as February 21st. We'll has our budget committee appointments. Amendment number 5, collection system rehabilitation, basins 2 and 8. Contract for Sandercock reservoir repairs. Under new business, we have our draft of the city council goals. Then we'll have a report from our city manager, Jordan Wheeler. We'll wrap up tonight with our committee and council reports. With that, Jeff, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Councilor Mayton,
Present by video.
Councilor Smallwood,
Here, also by video.
Councilor Sheldon,
He's excused for now. He's in a Zoom meeting. He'll be coming right back down.
okay, Councilor Walker.
Here.
Councilor Exner,
Here.
Councilor Hokinson.
Here.
Mayor Pulliam.
Here, thank you for that, Jeff. I'll now call on any proposed changes to tonight's agenda. Hearing none, we'll move forward to public comment. The council now welcomes your comments at this time. If you're attending in person, I have your form. I'll call your name. Sounds like we didn't have any online. So the first one is my friend Katie Heeb. Welcome.
Hello,
Hello.
I was just coming to represent James. And if you guys need anything, just here to sit down in your meetings and let you find out what the city of Canby or city of Sandy needs.
Wonderful.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. I know you're both very busy and you got a lot of kids running around there. So appreciate you guys joining us today. The next is it Dave?
Yeah.
What's that?
That's it, Dave.
Dave Carter?
Yep.
All right, please join us.
Hey, guys, here we go.
You got 3 minutes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, come on, there's nobody else. First of all, congratulations on great snow work. The city deserves a big pat on the back for that. I'm here to complain about sidewalks.
All right.
Okay, we have a mishmash of sidewalks all through the whole city. But the ones, when I moved out here that I thought made the most sense were the 4-footers right next to the curb. Don't have to get out on any bushes or any trees hitting your truck. No sidewalks being lifted or broken. And I'd kind of like to see them go back to that. Do a 5-footer. I know we got ADA thing, make the first 2 feet nice and flat. Next 3 feet slope out to the street. It's 3.5 feet actually with the curb. And then when you have a nice big truck parked in your driveway, we'll make driveways, houses set back where they need to be. That give another couple of feet so you can actually not have to go down the slope to get around them. And trees, you and I both know that you're just doing trees a big disservice, parking them in a 3-foot edge. They're gonna pop up the sidewalks. People are gonna have to pay thousands of dollars to fix it. I know I'm kind of tilting against the wind on this, but it's probably cast in stone. But I went up to the planning department. I couldn't get anywhere, a couple of times. So I thought, well, I'll come here. Then I got a question for you guys. Why are they putting a sidewalk on the south side of the new housing project on Vista Loop? They're gonna put a sidewalk in that goes down to the retention pond. The retention pond water and everything else comes out of that and goes underneath the highway and starts No Name Creek. So we're gonna wind up with a sidewalk that goes down to someplace that you really shouldn't build a sidewalk over. Why is that a sidewalk? Why does the contractor have to do that? Was another question I had for upstairs and I couldn't get answered. It seems like a few pieces of bark vest would be great if you want to walk down there. Anyway, I like the city. You guys make it easy to come down and whine at you like I am now. So, but I really did, when I first moved out here 30 years ago, I thought those 5-foot sidewalks were great, you know, because you can actually get out of your car without shrubs or stuff or a tree. You can have a delivery van pull up in front of your place without wiping out branches and everything. So I don't know, it's probably cast in stone because we like trees, but I don't think we're doing trees any favor. So. Well, where do you have the bank at your sign?
You're good.
This guy over here will tell you.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate letting me vent. Now I can go home and not talk about it for my wife.
Yeah, right. Well, thank you. And then we'll have a response at our next meeting for you.
Oh, so
Thank you very much.
that's what I was supposed to say, but I went on a lot more.
You're fine. Thank you.
Thanks,
sir.
guys.
Thank you. All right, that is our end of our public comment. We'll now move forward to our consent agenda. Unless there's discussion, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Brief discussion, comment, actually. Not on any specific item, but I really appreciate that we're moving a lot of these things to our consent agenda. And I just want to make sure staff recognizes that we really appreciate the work that went behind some of these large endeavors, even though we're not giving them a lot of time in council, but that their work's appreciated. So.
Yes, thank you. And in addition to that, thank you to our oversight committees for, doing the work and stuff that's going to allow us a lot of the oversight for this stuff. Appreciate the work.
So with that, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion by Counselor Hokinson and a second by Counselor Exner to adopt our consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thumbs up, aye. Opposed, no, or thumbs down. Motion carries. New business, the draft of our 2023-25 city council goals.
Okay, so in your packet are your proposed goals as debated and discussed at your goal setting session on February 18th. So I did want to highlight that these, of course, are draft, and our hope tonight is that we get your feedback and input, revisions, additions if we didn't take good enough notes during those 7-hour plus retreat, and then we'll come back after we have the final goals for your adoption. And then after that, staff gets busy and develops a work plan and incorporates the goals into the proposed budget. The structure of the goal setting was by department. The council discussed goals by department, and so I sort of lumped them into both department, but also Bain, based on those service areas. In this case, it was the first department that we talked about was police, and so I, for example, made it into public safety and livability. It doesn't have to be structured this way. It's totally open to you, council, on how you kind of want the goals displayed and kind of categorized. But what we tried to do here is kind of draft out what we thought the goal that the council was honing in on, and then the actions that kind of fit underneath that goal. So you kind of notice that structure throughout each of these. And so this first one, we had a lot of conversation about. This was the code enforcement officer position that was discussed, that kind of came through the homeless task force, and that's around that and the needs that we're identifying for kind of enforcing the municipal code and kind of propping up the community livability. And then the other kind of item that was talked about during the presentation with the police chief was the traffic officer program, which we're on the path to do, but recognize that that is something that the council wants us to stay focused on and bring attention to. Comments on?
John.
Feel free to wordsmith too as we go along. I know we love to do that through time. And the second one, I think Councilor Smallwood and Sheldon would agree that we have, continued work to do with the homelessness task force, and especially kind of building off the forum that we had, and engaging with other community partners on kind of moving that work ahead. And the idea that we were talking about with that group and kind of shared with council was around behavioral health. And if there's a way to partner with neighboring cities, county, other agencies on some staffing opportunities there, services.
Please.
Do you want us to comment while we're going through or wait to the end, bring them back?
Whatever's easier for you. I'll take notes as we go along.
I just wanted to note on this one that last year or 2 years ago, when we started, we had a goal for around the task force, the homelessness task
Mhm.
force. Did we want to say anything about continuing or expanding, or has it met its, is there an objective to be achieved there around the task force this year?
No.
Or is that the means to
Going,
get to
well, the
this?
problem is, right, is not really a problem, but the two major issues I feel like they needed to cover this last time was the overnight camping ordinance as well as the derelict RV policy, and they, for the most part, we just adopted that. I almost view it as, I hate to say this, a troubleshooting committee.
Okay.
It's that we find different issues in the code or state law that come forward that we need to adapt to as a community. We kind of land it there into that committee.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we don't drop something.
Yeah.
inadvertently.
Can I ask a question about this? So when it says reinstate the traffic officer program, what does that mean? Like, I thought it was just, I guess my understanding was that it was just on hold, given some staffing challenges and
Yeah.
stuff. So are we just talking about like, once we get, I mean, is that really a goal then?
So they're just fully staffed. the police
Or is it
force.
just to like get back up to fully staffing?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I kind of characterize it as something that we know the council's interested in, wants us to, focus and, basically report back and keep an eye on for you. You bring up a good question, because I had the same thing. Is this a goal or not? Something that we're going to do as soon as we're fully staffed is make sure that that assignment gets filled and that we have a traffic officer there. There's other components to the traffic program too. It's traffic officer program, but we did get the speed trailer. We're exploring more, radar speed signs and things like that. So there's more to the program, but it's kind of, I mean, is it an action that would not exist if it wasn't a count? Yeah, we're going to do this. We think, the police department agrees it's important, but it's something that kind of demonstrates to the community it's important too for the council that you guys have your eyes on it.
I would like to see, 'cause I know Sandy doesn't participate in this, but there is grants for like overtime and such like that, specifically around traffic safety. And I would like to see Sandy reaching out to those partners and maybe exploring those a little more. While there is a match, I think it's a very easily obtainable match. And so I would like that.
Tradition.
I would like to see that goal. Whether we want to call it being put under that program or not, I think that's something I would like to see.
Just to echo on that, I think I mentioned it at the meeting, it's just trying to, there are a lot of different grants out there, and I don't know which ones fit with our needs. That's for them to kind of figure out, but pursuing grants to the extent possible, especially, with the match required or whatever, that's something that just helps raise everybody's boat higher, so.
For me, the traffic officer was a big issue, and I'm glad to see it there. And I guess I would like to see it stay there because of all of the seemingly difficult issues that seem to pop up in my monthly trails. When I hear people talk, it's that relate to the traffic issues around the city. So if you want to change it to something other than that, I'd like to see the traffic officer stay as a priority.
And adding to that, you mentioned my oft repeated, radar signs in certain key areas. I prefer to see them included explicitly under public safety and livability. I know you said that's department, but I think that concept and that goal spans departments, right?
Mhm.
And so I would include that there rather than under public works or somewhere where it gets buried under a curb replacement and so forth.
So a specific goal related to.
Not necessarily, you can combine it. So what we're talking about in the traffic officer program, I think,
Got it there.
is we need to get better control of our traffic, more intentional.
Why not call it like develop a traffic safety program or something. As
As long
opposed
as
to
it's
a
not a
traffic
master
officer,
plan.
right? Yeah, I don't think it needs to be a master plan.
But
But
that's
I
the
mean,
speed limits and, you know, the other things that we're considering are all kind of under that livability. um,
I move on to the next
Please.
category. All right. All right, public works. So there wasn't a lot of conversation about water, wastewater, the other utilities, probably for good reason. We have, we
Because
talked
we've
about
already done.
Because there's
Because-
so much already.
because there's so much and we're doing all that. But, you know, I kind of took a liberty here in including a goal statement around that, just because it does dominate so much what the council's doing and there's a lot of attention on it. That's up to you whether you want it as a goal list that we're going to continue those investments. And
We did have the word under the category sustainable infrastructure from 21 to 23.
Hmm.
That might be a good umbrella potentially for that number one.
And I think with Katie here, you know, continuing to recruit federal and state dollars in investments in our infrastructure to help our ratepayers is really,
Yes.
as opportunities come up, so.
So this one, the next goal is kind of a catch-all again, kind of related around our transportation system plan. And so there were some actions that the council identified with conversation about specific projects. Those will be in the TSB. And I think, you know, I just felt like there was an opportunity to link them together, that we're going to have this TSB adopted this year, and embedded in there are these key projects the council wants to see move forward. I think there was a comment about whether we can actually construct
Yeah.
improvements.
I mean,
versus
Tim, I mean, my understanding from our conversation is we wanted to figure out what our next steps are, and then we'll construct whatever those are, but I don't think we know right now.
As long as we're
what
not
that
prohibiting
means.
until another. biennium.
Oh, no, I don't want to
Yeah.
prohibit it. I just want
I
it to
don't
be
care.
more realistic.
Sure, as long as we're moving forward on that.
Is there more after this on public works?
No,
You know, if we're one that
To be Carl and Don's drum. I think we need to really have some conversations and some forward movement on our sewer, I'm sorry, our wastewater, not our wastewater.
Stormwater.
Gosh,
Stormwater.
sorry.
so many waters.
Stormwater.
Okay.
Process. Well, I think we're in such an infancy stage. I don't know what that looks like yet, but some ways to start doing that. And then the other piece is we've depleted our, again, money wise, we've depleted our roadway fund a lot. And there needs to be a plan on how we're going to start building that back up as well.
Mhm.
Sorry, Judy.
You gotta come up to the mic
All
here and
right.
speak up, yeah.
We know there's risks in the stormwater, so we do have a plan to do a master plan starting in July of 24. That would be fiscal year 25. We wanted to, so I do have that in our current budget. Sorry,
Proposed budget. I think-
proposed budget. Thank you, I'm new.
What the council discussed, I think around that goal was ramping up to have the fund be able to support.
Yes.
those forward
Yes,
plans.
that's-
Yes, that was our plan.
Yeah,
That's
I think. you
Because it's so,
Yeah.
the stormwater is so little right now. I mean, double it, it goes, it's still.
Well, we need to find a way to get there, and if the plan doesn't happen in 24, we still need to get the money up and running to that.
Yeah.
So
So
I would,
I think we can add
right
something
now.
in number one, along the lines of sustainable infrastructure and,
rates.
yeah, figuring out a goal around kind of the sustainable stormwater infrastructure. you
We're
know,
moving it towards sustainable.
financially stable in support of future master plan and other critical capital improvements.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, community planning and economic development. This one, there's a couple here on, so this first one, foster community and economic development and tourism opportunities through events that promote and leverage the city's story, history, and natural beauty. And there was a lot of excitement and conversation around, in particular, the holiday lights at Lincoln Park. I did capitalize Winterfest event. Have to be the name.
Thank you. I have whatever its name, but thank you.
I would kind of edit events and projects, because there's some other things out there that we could be doing that aren't that expensive. I'll write it down.
What do you mean by project? I'm sorry.
Okay, like
An example.
an example, one of the things I would like to see is, the Sandy logo on our flags, on the banners and
gotcha.
stuff.
Okay.
Well, I think that those should have like pictures of Johnsford Viewpoint and Tickle Creek Trail and the holiday, things like that, where people kind of see, oh, I want to go there. Because, seeing the city logo,
Events and
ho-hum.
project. Now I understand. Okay.
Things like that. And then the camera, live cam at Johnsford Viewpoint. That's something that could really help market Sandy and bring in tourists. So,
One of the things that, I'm not sure if it's an event or if it's just something, but we've talked a long time about having some sort of entrance sign to Sandy where it says, this is the kind of community that we are, Kiwanis Club, all the things that are important for it. And where that might be located as the entrance to the city of Sandy. I think that's one of the things that I would add to Kathleen's list there. But one thing I guess I struggled with is this one didn't really talk about economic development, how we are working towards bringing in businesses that make a lot of sense for our community as we see movement from some of the close on communities that are having struggles keeping businesses. We would love to see some of those businesses land here. Maybe there's a way that we can move our way towards encouraging appropriate businesses in the city.
Yeah, I was going to flag that as a question for the council under this heading. There wasn't I don't think maybe it was time or something, but there wasn't a lot of conversation around economic development in that sense, right? Talking about the program and how we approach it. And I thought maybe one thing to kind of throw as a draft goal out there for your consideration is implementing the economic development strategic plan. It was presented the other night to the economic development advisory board and becoming in front of council as a work session, eventually adoption, and there will be actions and strategies in that plan that kind of speak to what you're talking about, targeting industries and what we're looking to recruit
with the things. Right. So I guess I would say B would be looking at ways to encourage businesses to come to explore the possibility of getting established in Sandy,
So
especially with the things that are happening down at 362nd.
some of that's coming, if you want to get to point two.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Sorry, yeah.
But
See it there.
before we leave the point about the economic strategy,
Mhm.
that to me would fit under one as a 1A or 1B or something, or put all of that under the strategy, however it looks. I haven't seen the strategy, so I'm assuming it's broad.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of difficult. You guys haven't seen it yet or haven't
Right.
adopted it yet, so you don't know how you
So you could say A, non-economic strategy.
adopt and
Yeah.
implement.
And
Yeah,
move forward.
adopt it.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
And then on this one, I don't know if it's this one or it's its own, but missing in here is we've got to come back to Pleasant Street and what are we gonna do? We need to revisit Pleasant Street in light of everything else that's changing and where we're going with the community park. And so I think that's one. And our old barn district. How do these areas play into this? I think we need to do something or at least acknowledge the opportunities that are there for us.
I think maybe the question there is, does it live in council goals or is that
It lives in-
Sura goal? Right.
Well, that's fair.
And remember, I am hesitant. I mean, we could very easily, guys, in this conversation, find ourselves going back into goal setting. And what this is supposed to be is a review of the conversation that we had at goal setting.
True. But just a reminder though, that we didn't have time to finish it. There was a number, I did bring it up, that there were a number of things that were not accomplished in the previous biennium. We have somehow to figure out what those were to be adopted or ignored, or however we want to move forward. We didn't have a chance to talk about those.
I am looking at them while we're going through, and in most cases, they're restated. Other than the
Well, not
ones-
all cases.
other than the ones I'm flagging, so if you see some, as we go through.
Okay, so a couple of things, I don't have to read all these, right? You got it right there in front of your screen. So we do have the comprehensive plan that is, you know, on track to be completed. One of the things that the council has a conversation about, especially in light of the current legislative session, are kind of around the code option pertaining to local control and decision-making. And I think that, you know, details some legal advice and some research. And then we implement policy changes about new and emerging state regulations. And again, this is trying to strike that balance between maintaining the community's character and livability in light of things that, you know, are continuing to be mandated or pass through state regulations. And I'm open to wordsmithing on these, you know, these are a couple attempts here.
So I mean, the only thing I don't see is to the, or just an earlier conversation going is adopting the economic development.
Yeah. Yeah, I have that one.
In the
as a standalone.
in D, where we say to increase cost recovery, I would prefer to phrase that something in terms of aligning with the master plans or better aligning, because, you know, you're not always going to be able to achieve it, but something to draw that connection. So it's not just increasing the,
Okay.
but trying to fund the plan.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure. So this one seemed like it was a conversation around development fees in particular, and not necessarily implementing utility master plans, but
That's fair.
was probably.
Okay, never
guess,
mind. I
Yeah,
retract it.
planning,
You're
building fees, and then SBCs and things. And the cost recovery is more of like how much time staff work is going into it.
You're right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Then speaking of cost recovery and the points here of Parks and Rec, that was something I was probably one of the most impressed with Rochelle's presentation, was the focus on cost recovery. I do feel like maybe we want a line in here that says, you know, continues to make cost recovery of, you know, community events a priority, or, you know, something along those lines, or to track, you know, track and focus on cost recovery.
Can that just be a city policy or a city goal?
It should be.
I mean, with all seriousness,
So
like,
number
I mean,
D kind of takes.
cost recovery for
you
that.
could-
when-
Well, yeah, I mean.
Until, I love the fact that it's a council goal,
Development fees and
because it's a
user
change in
fees.
what has been done historically. at the city
Yeah.
level.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying like that's fair, but I think instead of just putting it under Parks and Rec or something like that, right? That should be a council goal. that needs to be
Overarching.
a council goal.
And, you know,
Overarching.
the police have the alarm system fees and,
Yes.
you know, so it should be, you know, so number D, 2D under community planning, got, you know, development, you could just say update the planning, building development fees and city user fees to increase cost recovery.
Part of it's just, and how we account for things too, is, right? It's a combination. How do we account? What did we spend and also recover?
I see your point, Counselor Sheldon, about an overarching, you know, we have two that already, you know, that.
I think we're missing top council effectiveness, or maybe it's broader overarching council, but so maybe some of these things fall into that. Before you leave Parks and Recs, number E, residents with aquatic opportunities. When I brought this up, I was specifically talking about swim lessons and water safety, and I would prefer to keep it very on the public safety aspects of the aquatics.
lessons and you say water safety.
And water safety, so whether it's life-saving skills or, you know.
Any other on? Parks and Rec?
I would add just expanding volunteer opportunities. Collaboration.
If we're gonna put that in this place, I was looking for a way, you're gonna know what I'm gonna say next, is a way to fulfill all of our committees that have yet to be completely established. And so if we're talking about bringing in Community Connect.
Just say art committee, come on.
Just say, we gotta put the art committee back together. I'm so tired of bring it up and you guys do nothing. So it's here, it almost applies, I know, it almost applies to the previous one under economic development, because really art is in that arena, but if that's what we're gonna add with Kathleen's, I think we should really put in art in there. Come on, give me a bone.
I mean, if you want art as far as mural or something like that, that's like the one in Atlantic Park, that's so nice that a volunteer put in. I mean, I'd be okay with considering art for, you know, as part of parks and stuff, but not, I'm not down for like this to be the way of sliding in a full-fledged committee or something.
Well, it's been established. The committee's not a brand new one.
If
No,
you're,
it
it was totally dismantled.
No, we've established, it's on our website. We've changed it from being a subcommission to a committee. And it's been
Jeff?
it's there.
It's an advisory board.
Public art advisory board, but
But
we had
it's-
direction not to fill it.
It's not.
Until we got the time, and we have been
Yeah.
through several different iterations of adding things to the list of what you guys do, so. I'm a Democratic guy. You guys decide you want to put the art thing aside. I will be the naysayer voice, but
Well, if we said expand volunteer collaboration opportunities,
yeah,
that would,
That
Across the board.
Cover.
across the board, that should cover it.
Yeah.
There is a conversation that can go on this. I mean, because there's other opportunities maybe to fulfill some of these goals around art, right? Like the gateway,
Sure.
signage, some of the beautification could be volunteers, it could be an outside group, it could be.
one thing that I've been noticing, and a number of the artists in the area have been talking to me about, we've lost some of the quality of some of our art. So, for example, where the murals are starting to fall apart, so we need to
The
start.
community center one. thing on that, or-
No, I'm talking about the one off of the Ace Hardware.
But that, you know,
So some of those things, you need to have
but not
somebody.
everything has to be the government. Like, there's nothing stopping these artists from starting a nonprofit and taking on, you know, these
Artists of Sandy?
murals. Artists of Sandy, like it goes back to the pool conversation and everything else. It doesn't always have to be the heavy lift of our city government to make things happen. It
Some
can
of
be
that though is,
proactive community members forming on their own.
some of that though is coordination. Some of these artist products are city owned. And so there's gonna be some sort of interaction between our government and if you put together a art committee that wants to do those kind of things. So you need to find some connectivity. And at this point, there is no real liaison number, person, staff that puts that on their list. So,
All right.
so okay, all right.
I think Kathleen had a good proposal, broad abstract proposal there.
I reserve the right to bring it up in the future.
no, and I think that's, yeah,
Noted.
that's a good approach to.
Expect
And you just do MOUs, you know, where there's
Right.
overlap between responsibilities.
Thank you. So Sandy Net, there was this overarching, master plan idea. All that long-term sustainability utility plan. There might be some better verbiage to come up with the next week or so. But that would include the rate study, staffing needs analysis, and space needs and permanent facility plan.
I mean, as long as you feel like that encapsulates making sure that we're compensating guys like Greg and others against the private market. I continue to be nervous. I just want to continue to make sure that we're very careful in
wanting to retain the employees that we have. And that we're paying something that's similar or at least competitive with from a total benefits package with the private industry.
And
I feel like that-
charging appropriate to
Do that in their city operations. don't we?
Yeah.
But isn't that one of those overarching items that we could apply to just about
Oh,
everything?
I agree. Absolutely. I think there's just not a lot of other sandy nets out there.
I was gonna say, Sandy, that's special. I mean, we're
Yeah.
doing something
Get that
that's
part.
different.
There's just not a lot of comparison. But I guess that's what I'm trying to highlight.
And it's a huge benefit to the city and a vulnerable risk when you look at the number of staff we're currently allocated to. It wouldn't take a loss of too many to put us in a real.
I think we've got
But
one
isn't the
like that
important,
coming
isn't
down.
the
Yeah.
important piece about this, right? To make sure that the process for Sandy Net to run is there. And then when we go down to city operations, number A, continue investing in the city's workforce to retain talented and community-oriented employees.
Yeah.
That,
Very much.
to me, that fits
It's a good project.
that piece. I just don't want to overemphasize Sandy Net. Greg is wonderful and all that, right? But I mean, it might not be the investment that we make that makes him leave,
Oh, there's a
right?
lot of reasons.
There's a lot of reasons why someone would leave. I want Sandy Net to be operational and
I'm with.
our
Yeah.
employees overall being taken
We need to
All
keep
on the
Jenny
board.
on.
care of as well.
Everyone.
And Sean, and Tyler, and maybe Jordan. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, library. So there was some conversation around Woodland. So I added a goal and action there for working with the county on the long-term plans. I think that was getting at the heart of that conversation. I think there was some conversation too about making sure that the library stands alone financially through the district funding. I think that was the financial sustainability piece. And kind of, I think that the intent of that financial sustainability conversation also is whatever we can do maybe to encourage the county to fully fund, those libraries, especially Woodland. And the library outreach and engagement vehicle too. Talk a little bit, or Sarah talked a little bit about that. If we can, secure some grant funding or other sources, that type of service that we can expand.
And I will tell you, the reality of Clackamas County looking at increasing the rate for the library district that we have in the next 2 years is slim and none and slim uptown.
Yeah.
So we do, we pay our mortgage on the library, and we also fund about, what was it, 193,000. I don't know, there's a couple $100,000 or something like that biennium from the general fund to the library. And so I hope we're not saying with this goal that we need to, zero that out, because that would be pretty challenging and difficult for the library to continue services if we, completely eradicate that general fund obligation. So I'm not, I think we need to kind of be pushing Clackamas County more to consider increasing that, but I also know that political viability of doing that is a lift, so.
I think that's right. Okay. Where you're at. Transit. Promoting SAM as a safe and efficient transportation option, increase system ridership. It's kind of high level goals there. Conversation around the proposed new route to Clackamas County Town Center, making sure that's safe and efficient, well planned. Increasing marketing for SAM, and I think there was different ideas for doing that. Events, grants, and SAM in that way. And then the last one is kind of related to sort of what we've been doing, implementing the master plan and the electric buses and infrastructure on that, and the operation center.
And I would just say promoting the efficient and safe and efficient transportation is, especially like in a private conversation we had with Andy several weeks ago. I always think of it from my daughter, especially now that I got a 12-year-old that's wanting to move around town a little bit more. Talking to Andy, there's a big difference between putting her on a transit bus going to Gresham
and then getting on that bus and coming back with, some of the passengers and everything else you're gonna come in contact with, than putting her on that local trolley. Right, and that local trolley that's just staying right around town, and that shopper shuttle that has very, very, very little instances. I think we need to promote some of the different ridership options maybe differently as well. And I don't know how to put that into a goal. I'm not saying to, I'm just kind of speaking more broad.
So I think even as a goal, I would change marketing to ridership. And the marketing becomes one of the tools, right? But really, the trolley, the reality is the trolley's empty way too often. Yeah, I passed it, it's empty. All right.
But it is critical for certain times and people, and maybe the time you saw it wasn't a use time. People try to do things before and after work sometimes.
I'm not saying it's not used, but it's empty more than it should, right? So
No argument there.
maybe marketing, maybe retargeting it, maybe changing the routes, times.
Sure.
But up the ridership, not, Andy does great at balancing her budget. I mean, if I had ran a business, I'd hire her in a heartbeat. But she's not paid for ridership on the trolley. So let's incent, let's put a goal at the higher level to increase the ridership.
On the trolley specifically, because we do have a goal, that top goal says increase system ridership.
Yeah, specifically for the, maybe you're right. It's really for the trolley and that around town stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's an amazing resource.
That's underutilized. I
And it's
totally agree.
highly underutilized.
You agree?
Yeah.
I do.
And then what the title of this category, city operations, relates around this sustainable staffing plan. And so the conversation council had around retention, recruitment, compensation, and conversations that we also had about space needs, but projecting our future staffing needs to maintain our current level of service, but also anticipating continued growth and level of services that we provide, the number of services that we provide, and that two-fold plan really is getting back to done some space needs analysis. We've talked about kind of how many facilities we operate. This one in particular and others are pretty stretched, and we should probably maybe put on the paper a real achievable plan to how we better utilize space or have a path forward that is realistic on how we have more space. Staff.
Okay, we're good.
So that, when I mentioned earlier about potential different topic and the council effectiveness or whatever, we did talk about the need to continue or the council policies and rules update we didn't get to last year. Specifically, I didn't get to one other council member. I think it should be a goal moving forward. If you're okay with that, Mayor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And was there interest in having a under that category or even under city operations, but the cost recovery policy, or is that would be included in the review of council?
To be honest, I don't care how it's organized.
Okay.
I mean, as long as I can find it.
Anything else missing? Probably, but there's a lot here, and
More than enough to.
like I said, it was a great goal setting session, and it's great goals and actions, and now we developed a plan to make this happen. Thank you. We'll bring them back for adoption.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, moving ahead. You still up, Jordan? Not gonna let you off that easy.
No, okay.
Report from the city manager.
Just a couple brief things. One, you have that online survey that's currently open. I think it closes on March 8th. This is on the concept plans for the new community campus park improvement project. I think we've had a great response so far, over 100 on the survey. this is kind of building off of the open house that was rescheduled but held last week. And then I wanted to also highlight something for your calendars coming up on, I think, the 23rd of March is the Clackamas Cities Association dinner. So Senator Bonham will be in attendance to answer questions about the legislative session, which I think will be pretty exciting here. But that's on the 23rd at Smoky Hearth at 6 p.m. Under the covered structure. So we're really looking forward to spring starting that week, right? Is that when it starts? Yeah, change the weather.
They have heaters.
What's that?
They have heaters. as well.
They also have heaters. Yeah. And then, you know, there's some, I'm sure, a conversation to be had about the legislative agenda currently going on right now. I know we talked about that a couple weeks ago. House Bill 2001, I think, is kind of the omnibus bill that now includes a housing needs analysis. There's been some tweaks to it, but the core of it remains the same. That is on a fast track, looking like it's going to be adopted. And it has bipartisan support. There's a few other bills that we were tracking along the same lines in terms of land use. One does not have a hearing yet, but there's another one that has to do with actual allowing residential uses in commercial zones and waiving SDCs for 15 years if it meets the definition of, I think, affordable housing project, which I think has to do with the 120% of median income or something to that effect. But there's that one, and then there's another one that has to do with variances and cities' ability to not require variances for residential projects.
Oh God, I'm having a stroke up here.
Yeah, I didn't want to create any health problems, but so we are, just so you know, we are tracking these and seeing if they're going to, you know, move ahead at the same pace that
I know, at the same time.
the governor's other bill priorities have gone.
You guys can't vote.
We're not alone in this. There's a lot of other cities that are very concerned about this. LOC.
They're also moving that up.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is, as you can imagine, something that we'll probably, you know, need to talk about if it gets serious and some of these bills get hearings. And one of the strategies we may want to talk about too is, you know, combining strength with other communities, you know, in terms of our lobbying efforts. And again, our priority obviously is the water project and the funding there. So there is some strategy around how we advocate for Sandy and also ask for funding for these key projects.
Is one of those, I got wind that there's a bill that's gonna require us to build so much affordable housing? Is that in that 2001 or is that?
Well, 2001.
What funding?
Well, that's just it. We don't build.
How's
like,
that?
Governments don't build.
That was the one we had
affordable
that conversation about 2 weeks ago.
Are you talking
I
about-
don't know.
Sent the letters about.
I think COTEC is proposing there's 130 some odd $1 million that they're trying to throw together into the budget for construction of housing for low income, but I don't know of anything that's made it across the line yet.
I believe what you're talking about is for communities, populations, 10,000.
10,000 and more.
Right,
yeah.
right, right.
But you would be required to build the house.
So you'd be required to hit certain goals, housing goals, and if you don't, you'd be on a public database of communities that haven't, but they haven't really added the teeth. And we all know through our experiences that there's usually enforcement mechanisms that they use, right? But that's the one that's really ushering through the legislature at massive speed.
This is 2001.
It's an update to, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What the LLC took credit for in some of the amendments is, so before the teeth come out, some of the analysis on whether cities are achieving their housing targets, factors that will be included are things that make sense, like what's the market, and outside of control, like maybe capacity, you know, utility capacity and things like that. So I think that was a very, very small win in terms of how this bill has been amended now. But there's no requirement, right? Because it's we're not in the business of building, you know, housing. This is all about the amount of supply that's needed according to some, the housing needs analysis and the state's own analysis and what should be built in Sandy or any other community over 10,000 people.
As they see fit.
And so we did have we've had a series of meetings with various members of the Capital Construction Committee on the House Ways and Means, and I think also on the Natural Resources Committee in the last couple of weeks, which I think have gone pretty well. I think the message that is helping us is fast-growing communities like Sandy that are now under even more requirements to build housing, to build it fast. We're up against massive infrastructure challenges, and I think they're starting to hear that, not just from us, but other communities. And so you're hearing more and more repeated these statements about water, wastewater
The
being
key word
priorities.
I'm trying to get all the cities to use is that the housing initiative is an unfunded mandate.
Yes.
Not only that, but if they're talking about eliminating SDCs, it's
Right.
not only unfunded, but it's.
I don't know the
I think
word,
it's
but I know where you're
They're
going.
taking the money that we, would
Yeah.
otherwise have, so.
And that's it for me.
Thank you. Don.
I just wanted to note that as far as the family birthing center item that I've been tracking, I did hear back that the Multnomah County Commissioner, the chair and Commissioner Stegman, they got my report and they're using that in their meeting with legacy health officials as well. And we'll see where it ends up. I haven't heard much, but one way or the other, it's closing. What happens post is really what everyone's kind of trying to negotiate for at this point. That's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you. Carl.
Attended the fire board meeting last 2 weeks ago now, and they have both boards, the Clackamas side and the Sandy side, have given both the chiefs the thumbs up to be able to sign it and move it forward. Hopefully, I want to check to see if everybody received my copy of the IGA. Everybody got a copy of it? There was some that did, but so you now have a copy of the IGA. I have not looked at it in depth. My guess is we don't have much influence at this point to be able to make much changes in it since it's been passed by the boards. So we do have that anyway. One of the things that I've encouraged the chief currently, because I know Chief Snyder is going to be retiring soon, is that really need to get somebody to bring that group of people into the council. We can figure out who the captains are going to be, who the person contacts will be. I know the mayor's talked about how we need to function with the Sura board, who that person should be. On and on. I think those are some things that we need to be able to have brought to us. Maybe it's a workshop item as we work our way through, get that figured out. As I'm aware of, they have not identified who those representatives are. So, and I will be there on this Thursday, which is the next meeting time they're going to have, and I assume they're going to be celebrating the fact that the IGA there is. If there's any message that I need to send to the fire board from council, I'm certainly willing to convey that to him through that format, but up to
Respectful, nice one.
I'll keep it nice. I like to keep it nice.
Then I have nothing for you.
All right.
So can I ask you a quick question, and maybe you don't know? So is Clackamas Fire taking over all fire duties at Sandy Fire now? Operations, but they'll still have their own fire district board that.
Yes, the board will still be there.
So Sandy still has a fire district, it's just
It's contracted out.
It's contracted out of service.
And there appears to be some advantages to having availability of more engines, more people, better pays, and some kind of things like that are seeming to be part of that. Now, whether that all comes to fruition, we'll see how that one goes together. Trying to be optimistic about this one. Am I a optimist or a realist? I don't know where I'm at this point.
So it does raise some interesting questions because we have some code that's tied to our fire district.
Mhm.
Some other things like that. What happens with this IGA with our,
What happens with what?
we still go, so would we still, would our code need to get updated to reflect the IGA, or do we still go to the Sandy Fire? So for like a burn day, for instance, we have code that says certain burning is allowable, but it's subject.
That- That doesn't have anything to do with the fire department. That's a city ordinance.
Well, that's why I'm asking though, but the city ordinance is subject to the,
Still would be the fire
Still
district.
fire district.
so
You
that-
can-
that's what I'm saying. So
Enforces,
they
right?
still go to the fire district. So the Sandy Fire District will set burn days or not burn days, or would it?
The
be-
Sandy Fire District, no district sets that. It's escaping me. Who does the air quality?
DEQ.
DEQ just determines burn days. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right, that may just be an obsolete part of code. Yeah.
But people
Sorry,
call the Sandy Fire District, don't they?
I'm sorry, say that again.
I mean, people call the Sandy Fire District to determine, you guys get it from DEQ and then do a little recording, right?
Yeah, but it's DEQ determines the burn day because they determine the air quality.
Okay,
I believe, I don't know this for a total fact, but I'll know more about it as the weeks go by here, but I believe there's going to be a fair amount of staff at our Sandy Fire building here in Sandy. So if there are phone calls, if there are certainly going to be staff there to take on the fires, emergencies and so on. So someone needs to find out what the burn day is, and what that means. Hopefully they'll call that office. And then just real quickly, 10 and 26 just continues to be frustration of mine. I was parked coming up out of 10 waiting for the light to turn. And of course, the left-hand turn from Highway 26 going east went green. And there's about 5 of us parked in there in the driveway of 7-Eleven, and 2 cars wanted to turn into 7-Eleven. And it became kind of like a train, you know, when it comes into the place where you start them out, where you stop them, there are people back and forth, trying to figure out how to give them a space enough to squeeze between the queue line to get into the 7-Eleven. And it turned out that they weren't going to 7-Eleven anyway. They were going to Dutch Brothers. So they went right through the sidewalk, or through the parking lot, I mean, to get over there. So really, we need to figure out a way to solve that. Isn't there a way we can make a U-turn there instead of making a right turn only? I'm not sure why that would not be a
Yep.
possibility. Let them go down to where Dutch Brothers is and go in their driveway instead of having to fight what's going on at 7-Eleven. It just seems like we need to do something a little bit different than just let it keep on going. As traffic becomes more busy, as that road gets more and more worked, I see there's more development work going on, and that empty lot there behind the new clinic. Looks like there's going to be some buildings put in there. So it means more traffic, more congestion, more trouble, people trying to get into Dutch Brothers through 7-Eleven. So we should move on something of that sort. So with that,
Can you put a U-turn in where you have a crosswalk? There's a crosswalk right there. I'd hate for a car to turn into somebody walking across the crosswalk.
I'm sure we can look at it and figure it out. And there's probably a reason why we don't do it now.
Well, I think they're studying this at sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
But yeah,
that's the answer when I brought it up, Jenny.
are we doing something forward on it? To answer?
Or
Kathleen?
maybe it was Kelly.
I would think this is in the TSP.
They're looking at that.
I know it's in the TSB. I was part of that committee, but it takes a while. And I think it was Rich brought up the fact that we have been using up the road monies in our STCs. I don't know where that all stands.
Well, there's
With the
3
priority.
agencies involved with this project. There's got ODOT with the 26, and then you have 10 is
County.
county, Wolf is the city. So
Yeah. And then you've got that thing right after the Arco where, a left-hand
yeah,
ramp thing that kind of misses the
Oh, I know,
Dutch
you're right,
Brothers.
right.
But when you put a U-turn and
That
you've got
could
that
create a
ramp thing,
conflict,
it
yeah.
creates that was what I was told.
It may not be the solution, but just the way it is now is very awkward, and it's looking for a way to make some accidents happen. And it just doesn't seem like we got that one figured out very well. So with that, I'm done.
I would just build on what Carl said. It's, that it is an issue, and what I think that's something that I think we need to look at in our TSP as far as there's some short-term solutions that we could do fairly cheaply, and then there's probably I don't know what the solutions are. But I echo what he said. I've heard complaints about it on Facebook too. Liaison with the library, the what's called the network funding for the library, and that's Clackamas County's kind of network, is kind of how all our holds happen, and it's kind of the centralized portion of the database that deals with all our electronic part of the library stuff. That's supposed to be funded by Clackamas County. They have basically told the library folks that are in charge of that that they want, cuts to the tune of something like 10%, which would drastically impact all of us. So one of the things that we might want to consider doing, and I'm kind of leaving it up to Jordan, but I mentioned to Sarah, if it would help, sort of like all of the birthing center, if it helps us to, write a letter to Clackamas County commissioners, indicating that we need to have that funding for the network, and encouraging our other towns around here in Clackamas County that also depend on those the dollars to that network program. That might be a way to handle that instead of seeing cuts, because if it gets cut, it's going to affect all of us.
Yeah, I thought maybe one strategy is just we should see what the cuts are going to be before, because we don't have like anything to react to yet. Like,
Okay.
I think some of the ideas I've heard is like the courier service and stuff, and then like what does that actually mean for Sandy and our patrons. But I know that, we've heard about this 10% cut across the board except for public safety.
That's what I was just gonna say, is I think the real problem is nothing against the cuts on the library, is what's going on is this new county courthouse. Yeah, so I'm worried, we will end up doing a letter for the library, and then we'll be doing one for the sheriff's office, and then we'll be doing one for the DA. I'm worried that everything's getting cut.
Yeah, we haven't seen the proposed budget yet to know what those actual cuts are going to be. So,
That's my library
I appreciate
liaison
that.
stuff. Good work on we did get a briefing on the wastewater, and that was really helpful. And I just think that, again, so much progress and work is being done there. It's just a yeoman's effort. So thank you to all those folks making that happen. And then thanks to the Parks and Rec Department, put on a great open house, met some really great people at the open house. This new couple to Sandy are big into pump tracks. They helped build the one in St. Charles near St. Louis. And they rode all the time at this other one called Big Marsh outside of Chicago. And those were two that I had pictures of, I have one that I kind of looked at, great pump tracks around that we might copy or, look at for design features and all. And so these folks have, firsthand knowledge of what could be. And so I'm thrilled that we have folks like that interested in those kind of facilities, and that we've got young people moving to town to help make this community campus reality. And the skate folks are equally enthusiastic. And so it's really fun to see that much enthusiasm about where this is going with this community campus. I'm thrilled. Thanks.
Thank you to the public works people that are running around during the snowstorm, plowing roads. And
Yes.
keeping it safe. That was super awesome. And driving around through other communities, it was a gold standard. So thank you. I just really want to mimic what Carl had to say, the tonight thing. I think even just staggering the lights so that Wolf goes one time and then off at 10 the other, because Dutch Brothers is such a high traffic, high volume area. And those cars, when you're turning onto that 2-lane, it becomes like this race to see who can get into what lane and dodge each other so you can get into Dutch Brothers or continue down the highway when they're turning. So even if they just alternated those, that may fix it. I don't know if that's something ODOT would be willing to do or anything, but it is. And then I have a lot of concerns. You develop behind their houses, whatever's going in behind the thing. And then also, even as you develop the Deer Meadows, and as that develops, those people are going to come down and want their cup of coffee or energy drink too. So that place is just kind of seemed to really mess up that intersection. And at the pedestrian crossing as well, it's going to be just like the one over by moving more people to hit.
Thank you. Lori.
Yeah, so like Kathleen was saying, Parks and Recs had their second kind of community gathering for the community campus. It had a pretty good turnout. It sounded like about 50 people. You know, and considering the weather was pretty harsh, I thought that was a really good turnout. It was a good group. They got a lot of interaction, and I think some good feedback. Plus, they had a couple focus groups before and after, so that was good. Economic development this last week was a pretty good meeting. I think there'll be some really good stuff coming out of that. And there's another Parks and Trails meeting this week, and I'm sure I'll be getting an update on the campus. So that's all I got.
Chris.
I had two meetings last week. I had Planning Commission and I also did the Economic Development meeting with Lori. Planning Commission, pretty short. They recommended the water system master plan forward to us, so that should be coming probably at the early part of April for City Council. So you'll be seeing that. Planning Commission did do that, and then the last application for self-storage was under review, called State Street Homes, which is behind Paola's there. That's been extended through April 24th. I don't really want to talk about it because it may come to us, but that was a 4-story building with internal storage on it. The last one that was approved or that was submitted prior to the City Council making the decision to stop that in C2 zones. Economic development, as Lori mentioned, it went well. That we did do seat nominations, and Lori didn't mention that she was nominated vice chair on that one with Jeremy, so that was good. And then they also are putting the final touches on the strategic development plan, the first plan ever for the city of Sandy for economic development. That should be coming to us for approval again in the coming weeks or months ahead. We're in the final stages of drafting that now for us. Other than that, I only have one other thing maybe for a future agenda, if you don't mind, Mayor, because I've been on a virtual meeting only the last couple of weeks, and I will be for the next few weeks. What I've noticed is that there's a lot of cameras that are off in my committee meetings. And I asked the chairman of the Planning Commission, we had only like, I think 3 people in the building and 3 people on camera, and all cameras were off. And I was like, I couldn't even see him. So I asked if there was a city policy on keeping cameras on during a meeting. And I was told there was not one. I recommended to the chair of the Planning Commission that he institute one for that committee, just to keep cameras on, but I didn't know what this committee thought about. If you're going to be in a public meeting and be part of a board, should you not keep your camera on at least the majority of the time? I understand stuff might happen if you're having a meeting at a coffee shop or something, but you should have that camera on so people can see you, the public can see you especially. And that's just my suggestion to this council. I don't know if we can talk about that at another meeting. I don't want to take up time tonight. So that's all I have.
Thank you for that, Chris. I do think that is a topic that we should, that is a topic that we should get onto a future council calendar, to adopt such a policy for our committee meetings as well as for our council. Yeah. Similar to what we did with the code of conduct. Thank you. That's a great point, Chris. A couple topics for me. Been doing a lot of the trips from Sandy to Salem and back for 15-minute meetings. Nellie, our lobbyist, has just done a phenomenal job of setting up meetings for us to get in front of different legislators. That's why I missed the economic development meeting. I was in Salem meeting with Senator Hansel. We met with, who's on the Capital Construction Committee. We had an opportunity virtually with Jordan and Nellie and myself to meet with Chair Holvey. And I thought it was really positive. They're really hearing our message that the need for infrastructure, what we've done by raising rates on ratepayers, we've kind of done our part. The state really needs to step up and to the plate do theirs. So I'm feeling really positive about our $14.8 million ask. I think the fact that it's only 17% of the budget's a really good talking point for it. So it's been going really good. I had a conversation with Patty Mulville, the executive director at the League of Oregon Cities. Basically that was in response to the letter that our council sent over to them. She gets it, she understands, and I know this about Patty to be true, is she is a huge home rule fan. You know, her position is similar to our stance with what we are doing on our water ask is one of, you know, strategery, as President George W. Bush would call it, where, you know, they really feel that this is a bill that's going through, has a lot of bipartisan support, people from both parties. And if they came out against it right away, that they would no longer be at the table to be able to kind of negotiate it down. She did provide me a list of Republican House and Senate caucus members that it might be good for me to give a phone call to and have a conversation with about local control and small government, the principles of their party, our party, my party. But it was a good conversation. The thing that I did say to her though is, you know, we got advice from our lobbyist to not do a letter opposing because we have this major ask. And I said, which was the right advice, but that's also why we belong to the League of Oregon Cities, is because we have these major asks and sometimes we need them on our behalf, you know, to really stand up to the plate and lobby on our behalf. So I thought it was a very productive conversation. They heard us. She did want to reiterate that she felt that the quote was kind of taken out of context. That was in the Oregonian article. I for one understand the Oregonian was quoted, so I can see where that could take place. I wanted to say something on buildings around town, and I think you know, kind of goes on the code enforcement side. We have a number of vacant properties in our community that have been vacant for quite some time. And I don't have an issue if someone's trying to get somebody into that building, but there are a number of facilities in our community that I've heard of people reaching out to and wanting to either be a tenant of it or to purchase it. And they get communicated, you know, we're actually not interested in having anybody in this facility. Before the famous blue building changed hands, that was the case there. The Kwanzaa Hut, former La Bamba building, I hear a lot of the time is that they've been reached out to several times and they have no interest of, you know, they
Is
don't.
there an exploit? Is it tied up in a weird family trust or is it?
I don't know. I don't know. All I
Okay.
continually hear is rebuffed, right?
Is this something our economic development guy can go look at?
Well, and that's kind of where I was going with that is I feel like there has to be something that we can do to step up the heat a little bit. To me, if you're not trying to get a tenant or you don't have the financial ability to upgrade your facility to go get a tenant, you probably should own that building. But to be thinking about some of these locations having been empty, some of them 5+ years.
Yeah.
You know, what are we doing as a community to really step up the game to make sure that something happens with these buildings? And I understand, to your point and your question, there's nuance, right? And I think we got to be respectful to that. But I, for one, would like to see, and I think it goes to that code enforcement discussion a little bit that we had at our goal setting, but I would like to see our city staff with our direction get a little bit more proactive in trying to get these buildings, you know, occupied. And when I hear that we can't occupy it because it's pretty much a derelict building, well then let's either get the building upgraded so it's not a derelict building. It goes to the carrot and the stick. We have the Sandy facade, we have the tenant improvement program, but sometimes you need the stick portion along with the carrot to get some of these things moving along. And I, for one, am losing my patience with a few of these buildings, and I wanted to seek some of your guys' opinions on that.
Time to discuss that now, if you want to spend some time on it. I have quite a few opinions on several. The old lumber store.
There's one that was
one of those
online.
great examples. We have tried, the owner has tried and won't use the F word, I use the not successful. It wasn't that word.
Oh.
Failed was the word I was thinking of.
Oh,
That's the F word.
Didn't go there. Sorry. Yeah.
You guys. Go back to my art committee.
Yeah.
But yeah, there have been a number of tries at that. And some of that is about code, some of that is about age of buildings, some of that is about money. You know, to Don's point, there are some issues that are behind a lot of those, but really, there's a lot of reasons why we could make forward progress on some of these.
Not to interrupt, but sometimes if you have potential fines coming down from the city, it
Motivation.
may incentivize and fix some of these family issues that are taking place.
I agree. I mean, we had the trouble with the lumberyard with the, and just with the awning and some other things that popped up there, we just brought attention to it and things went away. It
Right.
improved. So I think to Mayor's point, attention
Mhm.
makes change.
Well, we did put some facade work into that building and look what's happened. It's easily 6-7 years. It's just sat there.
Well, without taking up too much of our time tonight, Jordan, that is a little bit of a directional change than I think staff has had in the past. With doing some of these, what do you need to hear from us to get that directional change for staff?
I'd be interested if you want to have like maybe a separate work session to talk about some of the other strategies. I would be interested in talking more about sticks. You know, we do have carrots and more carrots, but you know, I've heard ideas in some communities like vacancy taxes and stuff, right? Like basically, if you're not going to help us revitalize our downtown, then there's going to be a financial consideration to just hold on to property for your grandchildren someday to cash in, right?
Right.
And that's essentially what's happened. And we're trying to have a walkable, pedestrian-friendly, active downtown, and we have key properties that have been sitting for 5, 6, 7 or more years, which is blight, and it can be attractive nuisance for squatters, for graffiti, you know, and there's very little recourse unless you have something in your code, like the derelict building code, for example, or penalties for having vacant, unkept buildings or buildings that just have no tenants and are not doing anything to help the council achieve their vision for the downtown.
So I'm feeling like this is something that council would be interested in taking up at a work session.
Could this be fleshed out in the Economic Development Committee first and then brought here as a proposal? Is that appropriate for that committee?
Is it okay? I don't think that the economic committee meeting, I don't think they meet frequently enough to tackle this unless they do a special meeting. I feel like this is something that we should probably tackle sooner than later. My 2 cents.
Let's get it on a work session
Yeah,
agenda.
workshop.
Okay, great, thank you. Then just capitalize on Kathleen's points. So it's very exciting dialogue happening at the community campus, and I'm excited to see where some of that comes out. And thank you to the community members are getting more and more engaged. I'm seeing advertisements for getting people out and engaged to hear what they have to say, and I just really appreciate those efforts. So with that, I will go ahead and adjourn tonight's meeting. Thank you.